Am I hitting it? After 4 years and nearly 200 episodes, we've laughed, cried, learned, and grown together. Today, we're taking time to reflect on the biggest lessons we've learned on this journey about autism, parenting, advocacy, and ourselves. It's a moment to honor the path that we've walked and get ready for what's ahead. But before we get started, don't forget to show some support by giving a share, subscribe, and hitting that notification bell for upcoming streams. Let's get started. Hi, Embracers.
Welcome back.
Welcome back to Embracing Autism. For those
Yeah.
longtime listeners, you know who we are, you know what we do. The podcast is something that Matt and I have really worked hard on for the last several years now. We want to kind of start off this episode a little bit on more of a serious note, because this podcast, we feel like from the feedback that we've gotten from everyone, it's really walked beside you through all those messy mornings, those IEP meetings, unexpected victories, hopefully for many of you, and everything in between. And we just want to let you know today's episode is going to be a little bit different. The reason is because this episode is episode 198. And as we approach a big milestone, that being episode 200, we want to take a moment not just to look back at the last 4 years. I can't believe it's been 4 years already, but to reflect on what we've learned, how we've grown in this journey, and how we've personally redefined what it really means to embrace autism. So we feel like the best way to do this is to kind of go back to the beginning of how things started on the podcast, how our journey started, and talk about why we even started the Embracing Autism podcast to begin with. So what are your thoughts, Matt? Good to go there?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm surprised that we've been talking for 4 years. I mean, that seems like quite a long time for us to
I
keep
know. We
going.
haven't even got a pie in the face yet.
Right, there we go. But no, I think it's been good. I mean, honestly, I think it's been therapeutic for us as well as for people potentially listening to get something out of as far as the podcast, as far as any type of helpful hints we have along the way, or just letting other people know that you're not alone in this journey, that we are struggling with these challenges and we're trying to overcome them with you. So not like we're trying to preach that we've mastered everything. I mean, we started when we basically didn't know anything. And that was kind of the groundwork for setting up the podcast of the way it's kind of going. Instead of us trying to act like we knew something we didn't, it was kind of us struggling and fumbling along the way to kind of where we're at now. Not saying that we don't still fumble.
Yeah, we fumble all the
frequently.
time.
Right.
They don't hear it because it's always edited out.
Here we go.
But I guess the people on the video, if you're watching this on video, yeah, you see all the fumbles because this is raw. But yeah, we just wanted to kind of reflect on those early days because I was kind of thinking about it, like why we started the podcast to begin with. And we were honestly really motivated by the fact that when we started this podcast, there weren't a lot of autism podcasts out there. A lot of the podcasts that exist now that are popular now in the autism world didn't exist yet. A lot of them came after us, actually. And the ones that were available, we felt like were really morbid or really depressing. And so we're just like, that's not us. We are more about, positivity and trying to be optimistic and, finding the light in the storm. So I really just feel like that's been at the heart of our mission at the Embracing Autism podcast. And I feel like, honestly, I think we've done a decent job of that, despite, there's been an episode or two where I've cried or something. But even
Right.
then,
Well, they were happy tears.
happy tears.
No.
Yeah, there were some sad
some
tears.
sad tears mixed in there. No, honestly, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, honestly, we really started when we had heard other I think there was one or two other podcasts where it was very kind of gloom and doom, and we're like, this can't be all that is out there in regards to parents of autistic children. There has to be something else. So we're like, we can talk about our experience. Yes, definitely some of it is more challenging, but it doesn't have to be, oh, today is terrible, I can't get out of bed. I mean, that didn't cut it for us, and we needed something else. So, I mean, we kind of wanted to be the change, and we became the change. So, I mean, as I was scrolling through just kind of our seasons, I think it was probably season 3 or season 4. The one thing that kind of I kept thinking of is like a lot of it was kind of very centered around like a love. So like we have like autism fathers, we have kind of building your community. I mean, some of the other ones just kind of real thoughtful as far as like um, essentially becoming self-aware, self-love, focusing on like our marriage, making friends, like a lot of the it seemed like to me like a lot of love and like showing that obviously we love our kids. I mean, we we love our kids a lot, but it wasn't just that. It was just showing like you can still have like a love in this world. It doesn't have to be complete isolation where everything is just gloom and doom, that there is something more uplifting there.
Yeah. And that's definitely something that we have tried to strive for because one of the things that we want to make sure is that our kids feel loved and that they feel that sense of love in our household and in our family. And to us, trying to embrace autism is a way of doing that because if we could do that for our kids, and then they can embrace it in themselves. And I feel like that's the most important part because growing up with undiagnosed autism, there was always that internal struggle and internal battle of like, why am I broken? Why am I so different? What is so wrong about me? And so I think that that's an important part of the parenting journey is really learning to personally, as a parent, embrace autism because your child's going to be looking up to you and seeing how you are essentially how you are overcoming your own fears and anxieties surrounding the autism diagnosis. And that's going to help them determine how they should react because they are kind of like mirror images of us. They kind of take on our own anxieties and fears and worries. So if we can show them that we're fully comfortable in it, even if we're not fully comfortable in it, but we're trying, then they will see that and they will absorb that and that will help them become better adults in the future. So that's definitely something that I have learned as well.
Yeah, I always keep going back to the metaphor that Matt from one of our earlier interviews in the IRL, can't remember the last name. I think it was a twice exceptional with the lighthouse metaphor.
Zakreski?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
If his first name is Matt, then sure, that's a winner. No, he gave like the lighthouse metaphor. Like sometimes, like you can't jump in and like save everything, fix everything. Sometimes you are basically just the lighthouse, kind of like giving like hope, guidance, support. I mean, basically everything that our whole podcast stands for. And sometimes you have to just kind of stay strong in your belief structure, and basically like yes, things are difficult, but we if we basically jump in and save our kids in every situation, or we don't allow them to grow and become independent, then we're not really helping them grow. We're basically just living life for them in like an extension, like a proxy. So I really love that metaphor because it shows having love but also being there. It's kind of like a interesting dynamic that you are loving them by basically being the lighthouse and shining and guiding them along the way.
Yeah, and for those of you who may not have heard that episode, the metaphor was be the lighthouse, not the lifeguard. So basically, be there to guide. Don't physically or emotionally jump in and try to rescue people every time. Instead, you're guiding them. Yeah, that always stuck with me too. Like, that's something that I think about all the time now, too. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. That definitely resonates with me. So, I want to talk a little bit about the beginning of our podcasting journey. Let's give some inside scoop here. Do you remember when we first started recording our first episode and we were in a basement? It was a like a dingy basement. We were in a room that had like missing ceiling tiles. We had a shattered light
Well,
thanks to someone,
I broke the light because, or the light cover because I was trying
the
to change
glass
the
cover
light
over it.
bulb. Yeah, and then the
Yeah.
thing fell and shattered, so we had to sweep up all
Yeah.
the glass, and that
And
was
then we
fun.
had like a hardwood floor with hard walls and a window, and we were on a highway, so it was super echoey. There was traffic sounds. This was before we had our high quality mics, so we had the horrible Yeti mics at the time, so there was lots of echo. Your mic would pick up my mic would pick up.
Right.
This was before we knew anything. It was so bad.
And then I don't know if you remember, in one of the episodes, there was the mouse that came across like the floor as we
Oh
were like
yeah,
in the
there was
studio
like a
or
mouse
our
that skittered
studio.
across the floor.
Right. We're like, okay. And then, I mean, fast forward to what, like 6 months later, there was also a snake inside. So it was like, I
Looking
wonder,
for the mouse.
yeah, like, and we're like, oh my gosh, like this is pretty intense stuff. So, I mean, that was that was all.
Our
Well,
first
well, I
studio.
was gonna say like the first couple of seasons, I imagine
Yeah,
we
now
were
I've
there.
upgraded to like a closet.
Right. And I mean, I'm in like what, the bedroom. So,
Yeah. Yeah, not
um,
much better. To be fair, for anyone who's interested in the update, we are actually building a studio. It's just a very slow process because of funding limitations.
right. But whenever that's up, it'll be fantastic. But no, it definitely was a challenge because I remember we didn't have the video, um, and it was just the audio, and we would kept talking over each other, and then we would basically try and guess when the other person was ending, but you couldn't like really see the other
Oh
person
my
because
gosh, it was so frustrating.
oh,
Do you remember the fights we would get into?
I hated podcasting back then because you'd get so mad at me because you're like you constantly interrupt me and oh yeah, it was rough. So
It was rough because so here's the thing. I was the one doing all the editing. And so every time there was an interruption, it added literally like 30 minutes to my editing. And so if you have like a 30 to 45-minute episode and there was interruptions because at the time we didn't have separate tracks. It was all on one track. I
right.
was so frustrated. I was like, dude, you just added half an hour to my work. But surprisingly enough, podcasting didn't drive us apart. It actually brought us closer together.
Yeah, just not while we were recording.
Not in season 1.
Right. No, I mean it was definitely a rocky start where I was like, "Oh my gosh, like this has to get better. Like this is this is not enjoyable by any means." But no, I
Yeah.
mean, and I mean we also weren't that great. I mean, granted I'm still not that great at it, but I feel like season 1 was really really rocky and
Yeah.
yeah, some of those
Well,
episodes, how many times we'd have to go through it like because I couldn't get things right and we'd have to like stop and edit and
I
it was
remember when we were like first sitting down on the mic and we were kind of just unsure of like anyone was even going to listen to this. Like, remember we start recording and we're like, is anyone even going to like listen to this? And we would upload it and we'd be like, oh my gosh, we got like 10 listens. We're so
right.
excited. 10 listens was like such a big deal to us back then.
Oh yeah, I mean it was kind of I mean fun in a sense in those days because we were kind of unsure about like what the future held. I mean definitely stressful because we didn't know what the autism journey was, so it was kind of like we were figuring out as we were going. So as far as like the whole like Medicaid and as far as like funding and all that stuff, it was always kind of rocky because we didn't really know what the future held, but it was an interesting ride. Now, I mean, we're more comfortable with autism, so we're not as like
Yeah.
unsure. We're kind of,
Yeah. Well, we were in the weeds of things. So, like, all of
right,
y'all listening out there, you were basically going through it with us in real time. So, like, that whole season 1 of figuring out how everything, goes and all that stuff, that was only like shortly after we figured it out. So, maybe a couple months, maybe up to a year after we figured all that out. So, it was still really fresh and like we were still learning. And I think that, like, our perspective on some things has definitely changed over time. I think we've gained some more nuanced views on things like ABA therapy and the conflicts in the autism community and all that stuff. There's definitely like some views that we voiced in the earlier episodes that we ended up kind of tweaking a little bit, not really fully changing, but kind of just having a more developed opinion or thought process through all that later on in updated episodes. So I just feel like this journey has definitely shown through the podcast like how we have evolved. Like, you can hear it in real time as you listen through the episodes. You can kind of feel us changing over time and growing into autism parenting.
yeah. I mean, I think the seasons, I mean, kind of led, I mean, well as far as like weathering the storm. Like I feel like that was kind of most in the weeds because that was I mean, straight up diagnosis and then trying to figure out, I mean, as far as like the different types, I think we had an episode where we're talking about like financing and all that stuff. I remember I had like a page of notes and I was trying to keep it all straight right before we were about to podcast and I kept messing up because I was like, gosh, what is it called? Or like, what is the
You're
limit
not
for,
great with like what are they called, acronyms?
yeah, or
Yeah.
like that. And I was like, oh my
That's not your
gosh.
fault though. Like, the dyslexia doesn't help.
Right. But it was like, oh my gosh, like we just figured this out like, I don't know, 3, 4 weeks ago. And now we're trying to tell other people about how it works and we're still trying to remember what the acronyms even stand for. But no, it got, I mean, it got much more comfortable after I think season one, because then it started to not necessarily deal as much with like medical diagnosis, and it kind of shifted reflecting back on kind of the family. And I feel like
Yeah.
that's kind of I mean, obviously the most important part, because like, yes, you're going to get your or the diagnosis and all that, and yes, you're going to go to doctor's appointments and therapies, but that isn't the real world of autism. The real world of autism is the everyday family dynamics and how you make it work. So that's where we started going through the different seasons, and we started to kind of build and focus on, as far as like siblings and like, oh, expanding the family, finding your tribe, trying to go to church, like different things that we were trying to explore with our family, and trying to figure it out for the first time. And I think that is kind of, I mean, the most meaningful part of the podcast to me is always reflecting back on the family and how we all kind of work together as a team.
Yeah, I would definitely say that there's some things that I notice now going back on these episodes because now we have the new perspective that I have my autism diagnosis, which I did not have when we started the podcast, and I did not get until a couple seasons into the podcast. So
Yeah.
if you go back now and listen through the podcast, I kind of get a kick out of it because if you listen to the early seasons of Embracing Autism, you will hear me time and time again commenting on like my kids' behaviors or other autistic adults and be like, "Oh yeah, I can relate to that. Oh, that I don't think that's weird at all. I do that all the time." And like just making little like side comments like that. And it took like a couple of years and then I was like, "Oh, that's why. That's
Yeah.
why.
You really
It's
are the
it's
weird
it's me
one.
too."
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well,
that to me was like the biggest transformation from early on in the season to like now.
we also did it with our, I mean, youngest at the time, now middle
Yeah.
child. We were calling her like our what, neurotypical
Neurotypical
baby.
baby.
Yeah,
Our neurotypical baby.
and then as we're going, we're like, well,
Wait
she
a
got a
minute.
diagnosis as well, so
And now we're
scratch
going
that
through that
one.
again with our third
Right.
baby. She's kind of fence sitting, and I'm like, I'm leaning 51% that she's probably autistic because
I
I'm
th-
seeing some
I think
things.
I think she is, but I
Yeah.
mean it.
Like
Yeah,
I'm a conservative diagnostician. Like, obviously I'm not a diagnostician. Don't take that literally. But like I'm like the type of person that's like I'm very conservative about my guesses and numbers. Like I'd rather be like err on the side of caution.
right. But I mean, in general, though, if you think of our mind and perspective versus each of the kids getting their diagnosis, it has changed drastically. Like with our first one, we were like, what does that even mean? Like, what is autism? Like, it was kind of a absolute panic. Like, you have no idea what that even means, what that is going to look like in the future, or anything like that. And then by the second kid, we're like, okay, like her sister is autistic as well. Like, we'll just toss her in the same bucket. And then for the third one, we're like kind of, I don't know, playing a game like,
Is
is
she?
she
Is she not?
autistic? Yeah, like this is fun. Um, but it definitely, it's helpful to know, like, with time, perceptions change, knowledge grows, like you learn more about the world that you're in. So that big boogeyman is no longer scary because you turned on the light essentially and you see that it was just, I don't know, a
Yeah.
dog or something.
Yeah. I think for me, like one of the biggest themes that I've kind of come across with our podcast is really like this theme of growth and growth mindset because I feel like that's something that I've really come to like learn and really lean on in my journey. And it's something that I feel like applies not just to the adults or the parents, but like to our children as well, because I feel like that's something that neurodivergent children struggle with in general. I know for me, like a growth mindset, like growing up was really hard because like as an autistic person you kind of get stuck in these really black and white rigid thinking mindsets, and so it's impossible to have a growth mindset when you have a rigid mindset. And so I have learned over time developing like my own critical thinking skills and emotional development and stuff. I've learned how important growth mindset is. So that's something that I've felt is really important for us to instill in our kids and something that I would definitely advocate for other parents trying to instill in their own kids.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea because I mean, honestly, your diagnosis kind of helped us in a way because you are able to kind of reflect on your past. So you are kind of able to guide the girls essentially like, oh, this is what I was experiencing when I was your age in school, for example. And this is how I've come to kind of realize like how to navigate that water a little bit. So, I mean, I think honestly, getting your diagnosis was probably pretty helpful. So, I mean, for what it's worth, it works.
Yeah. And I think for like our oldest kid, because she struggles so much with like that OCD perfectionist rigidity stuff, teaching her to have that kind of positive growth mindset has been a challenge, but something that I think that we are starting to see some like success in. One of the things that we've been trying to teach her is that like losing is just your brain growing, because you're learning something new every time you lose. It gives you an opportunity to try something new. And like if you look in history and look at the world's best artists, best chefs, best inventors, they all failed thousands of times before they succeeded tremendously. And so I think that's something that I've tried to start teaching our girls too, is to try to show those examples to them, because they have a lot of like idols. Like they're kind of nerdy kids. They're really into like Copernicus and like, all
Thomas
all these
Edison.
like, yeah, Thomas Edison. So I can use those historical figures, scientists and stuff to my advantage, because they had tons of failures. I think they had a story of like Thomas Edison's like failed experiments, where they were showing like all the things that he attempted to do and were terrible, or like his inventions that were like terrible. And so showing our oldest like, see, he made a ton of stuff that nobody liked and didn't work, and he is now famous for the things that he did and finally succeeded. So
Right.
I think that that's something that is still going to be like a continuous journey for us, because I don't think that she's still there, but it's something that I think has developed over time. And through this podcast, little bits and pieces of that have come together for different areas of that, whether it's dealing with meltdowns or dealing with sensory overload or whatever it may be.
Well, I mean, yeah, she's been a perfectionist since, I mean, basically, I mean, a baby birth.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, since she
I,
could talk.
well, I mean, even before, I remember when we had first had infants and toddlers, when we had the water bottles. I think we mentioned this, that she
Yeah.
didn't have any interest in any toys or us. She found interest in water bottles, and then we added some food coloring dye just to make it a little bit more interesting for her. And I was playing with her with the water bottles, and I had stacked one on top of each other. And then she tried to do it as far as like copying me, and it fell over. And she would get so upset. And I mean, I'm not,
Yeah.
must have been a year. I mean,
Yeah.
so I
She
mean,
was literally a toddler. Like she
right.
was a year and a half
But
in diapers.
she would get super frustrated, and then I would help her, showing her how to stack the water bottles up.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, she felt a little bit better, but before she could even say any words or anything, she would be very upset if something didn't work out just how she thought it should. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's an ongoing struggle, and I think it will get better over time. I don't know if it'll ever go away, or if it'll always still be kind of like the voice in the back of your mind, kind of like saying, "Oh, you can't do it. You're a failure, all this." And she just has to try and overcome and push through that to try and reach success.
Yeah. And I definitely feel like throughout all these seasons, we've also run into like a lot of stories that I'm still feeling a little bit like not pessimistic about, but realistic about when it comes to autism advocacy in the real world. We've had lots of episodes where we talk about discrimination that we've either seen or felt or experienced or had our girls experience, whether that was bullying at the playground or maybe it was something that happened in school. It might be like an unfair like IEP evaluation or something like that. And I think that that's something that we still are going to have to keep our finger on the pulse for. We have had to experience, you know, the difficult transition of having to move them off of the public school system into a homeschool system now, which is going to be an entirely new journey for us. And why we are going to have to shift a couple things to make that happen. But that's just something that we think is just part of the ride of, parenting in general, not even just parenting an autistic kid. I think it's just part of parenting in general.
Well, it's kind of like you expect or hope something is going to work as it's intended to. And then as soon as you start to see some signs that there's a problem or it's not working, or even more challenges ahead, you kind of have to pivot to try and find what is the best course of action to take. So in the instance for the homeschooling, I mean, we kind of laid out and kind of saw like, okay, where will this take us if we stay in the school system? And just based off of our kids and the personalities and ADHD and some of the other challenges that they had, like the school isn't able to offer some of the things that would help to, I guess, make them more successful than they are. And so, I mean, we really felt like we didn't really have much of an option to homeschool in that case.
Yeah. So it's kind of been, up and down. I mean, you guys know if you were listening, you've heard it all. I don't have to tell you. But I think that, overall, these last 198 episodes, is that what I said it was? I don't
Sure. The
186,
math works.
somewhere
Yeah.
there. We're getting close to 200. Have been really, really good. I think that for us, they've also been, honestly, I would call them therapeutic
Yeah.
because it's kind of like how we get our free counseling
Frustration.
session here.
Yeah.
It's like our marital counseling for the whole world to listen to.
Yeah.
And you
That's
can hear
great.
the little jabs, the little jokes.
Yeah. Take
Um,
that.
so like that I think has also been a really fun part of the journey. I think that, Matt and I get to bond a lot over the podcast and it forces quality time
There we
because
go.
we can't get it any other way. So it's
That's
like, oh
true.
no, we have to do an episode. You have to stay with me in a room for 30 minutes.
Do we do the cheesy thing that they do where people are like, oh, like
You're
holding
not
their
even doing the right
hands?
side of the screen. And for audio
Oh, are you
listeners,
on
you're
the
not
other
they're
side?
not gonna have yeah, they're not
Oh,
gonna have any idea what we're talking about. Sorry, audio listeners.
that's
You'll have to
fine.
watch the video to catch that.
No, it's like where you have like two people in like a Zoom call and they like hold up their hands to like the side that the other person is at, and then they
So
like
corny.
touch hand.
There's
Yeah,
there's that there's that corny vibe that we have sprinkled throughout the podcast seasons.
hey,
So there's that as well.
corny is what makes our family work. That's what you fell in love with. Um, so blame yourself.
Yeah. I also want to acknowledge though all of our fans out there because honestly, you guys have really surprised me in a good way. Like we started this podcast with, like I said, just a handful of listens, and now it's skyrocketed to the top 1.5% globally out of over 3 million podcasts. We've had celebrities on our podcast. We had Dr. Temple Grandin. We have Danny Bowman and Kaylin Partlow from Love on the Spectrum. We've had many like well-renowned doctors and physicians on the podcast. It's been a journey that we never anticipated. I can safely say when we started our podcast, I never thought we'd have celebrities on it. What about you?
Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, because honestly, we were just starting off as two of us having a conversation and the different challenges that we were having. We didn't anticipate that anyone would listen or want to be part of the show. I mean, there's definitely been, I mean, some very interesting people or organizations that have been on. I mean, one in particular, as far as like Bark, for example, like, I mean, as far as like the safety measures that they're going through for not just autistic kids, but other special needs kids, or just, I mean, young kids with technology in general. So, I mean, it definitely has opened our eyes that there are these services even available to, I mean, the general public. Like, we didn't really even know what was out there when we first started, but it's nice that after time, some of the people kind of reach out and we're like, oh, wow, okay, yeah, this does definitely jive with kind of the audience. So let's try and bring them on to show the rest of the world what we didn't know. So,
Yeah. And side note, this is unsponsored, but I am still a huge fan of Bark. I really do like their product. GeoBit too, for those of you who are looking,
yeah, GeoBit.
I have not brought up tracking devices in, I think probably like at least 2 years.
That's true.
Side note, if you are looking for some device to track your child if they're an elopement risk, I really like the GeoBit. I was a bigger fan of Angel Sense at the beginning because they also have the audio recording feature, but a lot of schools basically ban that. And so it kind of makes it pointless if your kid's in school, you're not even allowed to use the features that you bought it for. And it's a little bit more on the pricier side. So I personally use GeoBit for my kids, which I love. It's simpler. There's no voice record, but it does its job. So that's a side note. I just thought I'd bring it up because I just put them on the charger yesterday.
Here we go. That is what we trust from Autism Wish.
Yeah. And there's that ADHD of mine.
There you go.
So yeah, and I did want to mention, like, one of the things that I've really enjoyed about this journey is also just connecting with you guys, the listeners. You've left some really awesome reviews on our Apple Podcasts, and that honestly is kind of like what fuels us every time you guys leave a review. It kind of helps refuel us when we're starting to feel the podcasting burnout, or if we start feeling doubtful of, like, are our messages actually reaching people? I know we have all these listens, but like, what do people actually think and feel about it when they're listening? And you guys have given us that validation with your reviews. So that's been really helpful to have that feedback. And we've also gotten some really thoughtful emails from you guys. Like, we've gotten people reaching out for help with their personal story. We've had people just reach out to share how the podcast has impacted them. We've had people private message us on Instagram or Facebook. And, we are slow to respond sometimes. I apologize. Very busy people, but we do get back to every single one of you in time. And so what I've learned from that, and, our journey here with the Embracing Autism podcast, is that even though you are just some 4'11" woman in a closet with a green screen and a microphone, you can still make a big impact.
That's true. Now, I guess the big question is, if you could go back and tell your earlier self something, what would it be?
Get the cash out and like take the bigger mics early on. Like, if I could go back in time to our early podcasting self, I'd be like, do not go with the Yeti. Forget that. Go get those high quality mics and just, pay a little bit extra upfront, because the editing work and those first couple of seasons had me stark raving mad. And I think that's why there was so much tension.
There we go. See, I would have told my younger self, like, don't stress out. Don't worry about the kids. Like, Leah's got this. Go.
Wait, you said younger self? I thought you
Yeah.
said earlier self, like
Well,
earlier from the podcast.
Well, I mean, you were also younger than I'd imagine.
Wait, what's the question here? I might have
Like,
completely
what would
missed
you
this.
tell like your younger self?
Oh, my
in the
younger
podcast?
self.
Yeah, if you could reach out to like season 1, Leah. I'm imagining you were younger back then.
Wait,
right?
so are we talking about like teenager Leah, or are we talking about season 1 Leah?
Season 1, Leah. I mean,
Yeah,
you could talk.
yeah,
I mean, if you want to talk
Mike.
to teenage
Get
Leah
a better
too,
mic. That's what I would have told myself. That is such an autistic answer, I'm realizing. See how I
know.
completely bypassed all the emotions and went
Yeah.
straight to the logic?
You're like, get better tech early, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. Like, I would have said, like, don't stress out, like, don't sweat the small things. Like, Leah's got
This
it
is
on
why-
lockdown. Like, we're fine.
This is
we're
why
fine.
I'm a bad friend. This is
No,
why I
it's
have no friends.
it's okay. It's okay. So
It's like
you
they
would've-
come to me, they ask me for advice, and I'm like, did you get a better mic?
But that's good advice. Get better mics. I'm happy that
Oh,
we can say
I'm
that.
clearly, I'm starting to understand why my social life is not as great as it should be.
It's okay. It's okay. So, but yeah, it's
So yeah, it's been a ride.
yeah. Very
Yeah,
bumpy.
so I want to make sure that you guys, that, you have been really the main reason we're where we are doing what we're doing. And the reason the podcast has been so successful and we've been able to have these guests on has been because you listen. And that's not an exaggeration. Literally, your listens is what attracts our guests. So you literally drive the success of this podcast. And I really appreciate that. So I just want to say thank you so much. And thank you for joining us in this journey and in this episode of Embracing Autism. Matt, do you have anything else to share before I close out?
Soon to see you at episode 200.
Oh, the camera's flipped.
No,
Now
mine
it looks
is
like
right.
it looks like 02.
Mine is fine.
It's fine. Audio listeners can't even tell the difference. We're
There
good.
we go.
Yeah. So whether you've been here since season 1 or you just joined us recently, just know that your presence has really made our journey what it is. And it's so much more meaningful knowing that we have listeners like you out there sharing your stories and listening to ours. So with that said, I want to ask you all out there, what episode or guest changed your perspective the most from our podcast? What's one way your parenting or self-understanding has evolved over the last few seasons? And how has this podcast helped you feel seen, supported, or empowered? Make sure you share your thoughts on YouTube at Autism Wish or in our Patreon community, which is patreon.com/autismwish. If you'd like to support what's coming next, please consider joining us as a paid member for $5 a month. You help us support our Embracing Autism grant. If you haven't learned about that, visit autismwish.org/make-a-wish. And on there, you will learn how you can apply for an opportunity to have sensory equipment gifted to your child or yourself. Also, you will get bonus entries to that monthly grant if you sign up as a paid member. And I want to thank you again for tuning in. We will see you all next time.
All right. Bye.
Bye.